light, it has a chill beam, it has air, it has data, and also natural light and structure and services. And the plate was just the radiant heating. So this was a kind of coordination of the entire seating package. As you can imagine, was a nightmare, but it was worth it because then you can do whatever you want to do in the future. So this is a very high-tech package, and this is very basic floor. We also had another entity that intersects this box, which is called Dome, which was made in concrete. We wanted to provide two different types of technique that are available nowadays in the architectural field. One is steel and one is concrete, and totally different atmosphere. So this is a dome. As opposed to the steel that was very efficient and fast in construction, the concrete was much more cumbersome and difficult. So you can see how we made the mold very extensively, and then we cast it using around 4 trucks continuously to provide cast concrete in 24 hours. So this is an exterior space that has pods that is lit, but you can also sit on it and do some kind of exterior crit. And of course, you immediately attracts this kind of urban activity, which is not so common in the campus. So you have to immediately kind of protect it because at that moment, even the photography was not done for this new building, so we asked them to wait. There's an auditorium on top of this dome here. So this is a rendering, but this is a real thing. So you can see that the auditorium is actually half sunken, but you're surrounded with a context. So you have a panoramic view of the street, campus beyond an existing building. It also acts as a boardroom for the university. And this is underneath the dome. There's a kind of mobile wall that you can configure in different grid spaces, like this. And then you can always observe the grid from the grid. And also from the bus stop, you can look down to the grid. We also designed the bathroom, which is a single metal that is folded to create a kind of space, alternate space. So you're basically always sitting next to a different gender. You can see. I know it sounds horrible, but it's floor to floor, so no sound, no smell. But you have the sense that someone is next to someone. But a different gender is next to you. Sorry. I get overexcited when I explain. Now, these are the institutional work and big works, but one tendency, as a part of diversification, is that one tendency we found after Lehman crisis is that there are many powerful individuals who survived recession, but who gained even more power because during the recession a lot of people were very quiet. And that is an entrepreneur, of course, but also an artist. This is Marina Abramovic. She's a very famous performance artist. So what kind of performance? There are so many legendary performances she did, but basically a long durational performance. So this is 17 hours tying her hair with her boyfriend. This one is an extreme one. 90 days she spent. She started from one side of the Great Wall. Her boyfriend started from the other side. They met in the center. No exchange of words left. That's 90 days of performance. This is the one in a gallery in New York where she lived in front of public. You can see that the ladder has a blade so she can't come down. And she literally slept here, eat here, basically took shower here in front of people. This was the most successful one and most recent one in MoMA in New York, where she used the atrium and she sat basically 36 hours, 3 months, every day, and people can book to sit in front of her and just stare at each other. So she's this kind of very extreme artist. But she wants to now preserve this kind of typology of long duration of performance. So she bought a building in upstate New York called Hudson. That's about 2.5 hours drive from Manhattan. This is like any small town. And she bought this building called Community Tennis. It used to be a theater. It got converted into an indoor tennis court. You can see the lines that for the tennis. And which is really funny building because it used to be a theater, so there's a balcony here, but the tennis court didn't fit, so they literally cut the balcony in the shape of tennis court. So you can see this part is cut to play tennis. So anything could happen in this venue, but it has to be over 6 hours. So we made this box, a white box that can house any type of performance like this. A flexible space, also flat space that you can reconfigure in different ways. But let's don't forget that we have to, every performance that happens here is over 6 hours. So we started to analyze what the architectural consequences of facing a performance over 6 hours. There are 3 different conclusions that we made. One is audience. Basically, if the performance is so long, this is her performance in Guggenheim, that if the performance is long, people are fully engaged, has, of course, such an attention span that is not going to stay here for 6 hours. So they created this kind of periphery space that you can kind of see what's happening, but not fully engaged. We looked at the baseball game as a part of the similar effect, because as you might know, baseball can be dreadfully boring. So what is the trend nowadays is that in the concourse level where you can buy beer and hot dog, it's actually open like this. So while you buy stuff, you can still kind of engage in the performance. You're not really looking at the game, but you're engaged. This is an extreme case that you can actually do something completely different while you're observing the game. It looks kind of disrespectful, but what's happening in the skybox is also the same. They're talking about business while there's a backdrop of the game. So what we did is that, of course, there's a performance space, but there are many other programs in the building, like library and so on. So we arranged those programs surrounding the performance space so that no matter what you're doing, you can always look down to the performance. So it almost became like an ant farm or like a dollhouse that is like there's a performer audience 1 that is fully engaged, audience 2 that surrounds doing something else but can look down into it. So these are the windows that we designed. So these are the kind of dollhouse look-alike elevation. So this is a library, for example. The reading desk became the window itself. So while you're reading, you can still look down to the performance. Or this is a classroom that the back wall is actually the big window. You can still look down to the performance. Second consequence of long duration performance is also very interesting, which is called Abramovich method that she invented. Typically, any performance, the performer, of course, trains themselves like this. And this is her Robert Wilson piece. But what she invented, or what she believes, is that if it's such a long duration of performance, even the audience needs to be trained before they go to a performance. So this is called Abramovich method. So these people are all wannabe audience. Yeah? So she wants to train them to be an audience who can stand 6 hours. So she invented this kind of healing and meditation sequence, and she even gives a certificate of being audience who can survive more than 6 hours. So what happens is that it's very interesting. Architecturally, of course, you provide a circuit. So you arrive and you get this kind of Abramovich method gears. You do training, meditation, and then you become an official audience. But what's so funny is that this is the show that she did in Milan. So these are the wannabe audience, as I said. But there is another level of audience who is not interested in being an audience, but observing these audience. So this is a typical picture. So these people are not performers. These people are audience who wants to be an audience. These audience are observing those wannabe audience. So it's so complicated. But we thought we had to accommodate that thing. So in the typical theater, of course, everyone looks at the performer, but here, you no longer know who is the performer and who is the audience. The third consequence is that the chair. This is a chair that she used actually for MoMA show. She sat so long, and of course, the deal was she sat every day continuously without moving. So she embedded the toilet inside the chair. So of course, a long duration, 6 hours, you can imagine you don't want to sit here 6 hours, meaning we had to invent a new chair. So we looked at the different types of long occupation, like a space station, or hospital, or even business class flight, or this kind of hybrid of activities that the person is working well while they're working, or the most common way of dealing with long duration. I can see some people already doing that. But in the end, what we invented is what we came up with is a hybrid of wheelchair and a massage chair. So people can actually observe with a very comfortable chair with a massage function. But Marina thinks that people can actually go to sleep because sleeping is a form of response. But when one goes to sleep, her staff actually rolls people out of the performance space and dock into a kind of more peaceful chamber. It's a little bit jokey, but this is the kind of direction that we are taking. So those are the kind of architectural consequences. So it's nothing really iconic in terms of architecture, but this is reusing existing